Good day, folks. Welcome to another video. So in this video, I'll be doing a rig demo for our character, Mr. Gulu. So his name is Gulu. He's a chubby little guy and he features on some of the animated projects that we're working here at Puppeteer Lounge. So taking a look at this character, it's a bipedal character, it's a cartoony character, and if I have to go through the rigs, this is the main component of the rig. This is the global controller that you can use to move the character around, to rotate, and also to scale. For the scale, this is the master controller, which you can use for scaling. So scale is something that is quite important. It is recommended that your character is properly scaled before we start rigging, but you never know. Sometimes we need to globally scale it to make it big or small, and the rig needs to behave in such a way that it works with the scale. The other controller are the torso controller. These are the main controllers for the body. So this is the root controller. It's also known as the COG, or center of gravity controller. So with this controller, you can see I can move the entire character around, so you can rotate. The other controller we have are the IK controllers, and these are represented by the blue coloring of these controllers. Coloring of controller is very important, so it's very identifiable. It's something that can be helpful for the animator to distinguish which controller does what, right? So this one is the IK for the chest, the top part. So you can see I can move it around, translate it, and if needed I can also scale it. And this scale is going to proportionally scale the shoulder region. Now this is the hip region. As you can see, when I start moving the hip, it will try to move the entire hip section, the pelvis section with it. Notice that due to the chubby nature of this character, in animation we need to preserve the volume. So this rig has this squash and stretch behavior, which is used to preserve the volume for the torso section. So this works for the upper torso and the lower torso also. And it also works with the rotational controller. Then we have the middle IK controller, which is used for deforming the central part of the torso. So you can rotate, translate in any direction as you want. These controllers, on the other hand, the circular controllers, are the FK controllers. So FK, in other words, is the forward kinematics controller. IK stands for inverse kinematics. The FK controllers, basically their main purpose is to create rotational control, right? So you can rotate these controllers around to create the necessary arc in animation. So all of these controllers, they work together. So if I select all of these together and start rotating, you can see how this character is maintaining volume with the rotation of these controllers. And basically the rotation is the simplest way to get a beautiful arc in the character, right? With the IK, it's easier to pose, but it's quite difficult to achieve the desired result for getting a beautiful arc. So that is why the animators are encouraged to use FK animation as well. So therefore, the rig that we are featuring features both IK as well as the FK. This lower part of the FK controller is called the reversed FK, meaning it will only rotate the lower part of the torso. This is quite important if you just want to rotate the lower portion. As you can see, you can rotate it in any direction, and it's also maintaining the volume at the same time. So these are primary torso controllers. The deformation controllers, on the other hand, you can see these rectangular controllers. These are deformation controllers. The sole purpose of these controllers is to deform the character, which is very important for especially cartoon animation. So using these controllers, you can scale, you can rotate, you can translate, and they all work together, meaning they will follow the movement of the IK as well as the FK controller, and you can select these deformation controllers to manually to create custom poses, custom deformation for extreme movements and extreme animation. So here is the belly controller, the stomach controller, which is used for getting that nice overlapping effect on the stomach region. There you go, you can also rotate. Notice how the trouser follows the movement of the stomach as well. Okay, moving on. Let's go for the controllers on the leg. So just like the torso controllers, the legs also has IK as well as the FK. So you can quickly switch between that by selecting this IK FK switch controller, and from here I can switch it to IK mode. So IK basically, now you may be wondering, why is this leg flipping around? Well, there's something called pole vector which you need to fix. Just go ahead and pose it like that, and then we don't have any problem. You can see it doesn't flip. Notice how we are preserving the volume for the knee region as well to get a better shape. There you go. The controller for the IK does have the ability to work without a pole vector as well. So you can disable the knee pole vector and it will work without the pole vector. This gives us a no flip setup, as you can see. There you go. And to twist the knee, all you need to do is just select this attribute and middle mouse drag to twist the knee. But for most of the cases, the animator will prefer the pole vector controller. So let's go ahead and turn that on. The pole vector does have the ability to have a quick snapping controller, meaning you can lock the knee if needed with a knee lock attribute. Using this, you can lock the knee position wherever you need it. This is quite handy as well. The leg controller needs to have foot setups on it so that we can have proper foot movement. So this has this combined foot movement, which is known as foot roll. Basically, you can roll the foot and lift the toe as well, and also rotate the heel at the same time. So this gives you a continuous foot rolling action with just a single attribute. This makes it very much easier for the animators to animate. Other than that, we have the regular banking movements, spinning of the toe, and also the toe wiggle. That's pretty much it. So just like the torso, we do have deformation controllers for the leg as well. So these controllers, as you can see, you can select them and move them around, and this is going to create the bending and necessary transformation that you need. This is quite handy for cartoony animation. We also have these extra controllers which are used for smearing. These are known as smear controls, so you can quickly smear the foot like so by selecting them and quickly distort it. Very handy as well. They all work together, so if you're going to pose this character like so, see that this controller will follow the movement of the foot controller, and you can create these nice bendy smears on the foot. Now let's go ahead and talk about the FK. So FK basically is the rotational controller. As you can see, we get that nice rotational movement. You can see we are also preserving the volume, especially for a chubby character like this. It's quite interesting. It's quite fun to get that volume preservation. You can see there. See how the leg pushes against the stomach region to create that volume preservation. And if you take a look at the back side, you can see how that buttocks will try to preserve the volume as well. So this all works in all directions. Let me go ahead and select the knee and try to rotate. You can see how the knee will pop. There you have it. So these are all the FK controllers to control the foot movement. Since this character has a clothing on it, there is a cloth rig on it as well. If I try to rotate the torso or try to move the leg, you can see these controllers, these tiny sphere controller will follow the movement. Basically, this controller allows us to move the cloth as desired, okay, like so. So for instance, let me go ahead and rotate this leg like so. So sometime, you might see some penetration or might want to reveal some section like so. Then you can just go ahead and try to move this cloth controller. The same thing can be done with these controllers as well. So this is the lower controllers for the cloth, and basically you can try to move them as well to get the desired effect. So if you are looking for a way how to achieve these cloth rigs, the techniques, you can take a look at the free training workshop that we have provided. It's linked down in the description below. So let's go ahead and take a look at the arms. So you can see these are the primary arm controllers. This is the soldier. Let's go ahead and rotate them in the object mode so they work in a behavior manner. These are the FK controllers. Try to move them. And you can see we are seeing the character retains the volume, especially in these sections like the joints on the arm, the leg. It can be very tricky because these are the places where we see a lot of penetration, bad deformation. So it can be quite a bit of a challenge. So let's go ahead and set up this twist. You can see we have a proper twist for the upper arm. Let me go ahead and turn on the shading on the wireframe so you can see the twist in action. And this works in all directions, as you can see. Just like the knee, we also have the elbow for the arm, so you can see we are seeing the elbow pop in there. These FK controllers can also be translated like so and rotated. And these deformation controllers that you can see, they all work together. They follow the movement of the primary rig, and you can see we can quickly deform and distort the character as needed. Let me go ahead and quickly switch this character from the FK mode to IK. All I need to do is select this IK FK switch and just switch it like so. This is the IK controller, the big square box. You can quickly pose it with the IK. It has the stretchy IK system, and if you take a look at it, you can see we're getting a good deformation on the wrist. And if I twist the forearm, you can get a better looking forearm twist as well. It's very important to pay a special attention to the deformation of the character. Basically, if the character is chubby or thin, we need to make sure that the characters, we are getting a better twist distribution, not just for the forearm, but also for the upper arm and the entire section of the body. And everything needs to work together. What I mean by that is these deformation controllers should work together with IK as well as the FK features. Now let me go ahead and select this elbow controller. Just like the knee, it does have the elbow locking feature on it, like so you can lock it. Additional to the elbow locking, we also have the feature for forearm switching to FK mode. So if I enable that, we can use the pole vector as a separate new IK controller, meaning I can pose it with it and I can also rotate it, which is quite handy in certain situations in character animation. And we have these smear controllers, which are used to distort the character's hand. So there are 3 controllers we can use to distort and create this smearing on the hands as well. Now talking about the hands, we can see these characters, they have 4 fingers. So this is the main controller for the finger. You can quickly control the girl. There are certain attributes that you can control. These are all preset controls, so you can use them to quickly pose the character as you need it. If I select just a single controller like a thumb, it will only work for the thumb, like so. If I select multiple controllers like so, they will all work together to achieve the effect that you're looking for. On top of the regular 3 FK controls for the finger, there is also an additional controller which is used for posing the character. Like for example, to get a better finger movement or get a better deformation on the tip of the finger. So there is an additional controller as well at the very end. You can see that. So this is pretty much the body control for the character. Now let's go ahead and talk about the face. So speaking of the face, it's equally as important as the body because the face is very expressive. We need to make sure that rig is able to produce a necessary facial expression for character animation. So therefore, let's go ahead and talk about the primary controllers. So these are the primary controllers. The global controller to move the head, translate, and also scale if needed to make it big, small. There is an additional controller for the head as well. This head does feature a follow feature, which means you can have it set so that it follows the torso, like so. Or if you disable the follow, you're going to get a feature like this. This is what I like to call the chicken head effect or a bird head effect. So the head will always stay in the same position, same orientation that is, but it will change the position based on the torso movement. Other than that, we have the squash and stretch controller, which is used for smearing and bending the head. So this is the topmost controller. We have this one, and we also have a controller on the bottom. So the face is divided into 3 sections: the eye and the mid region, and then we have the jaw region as well. And all of them can be distorted and smeared with these smear controls. If you take a look at the other controllers, these are the jaw controller. This is the lower jaw and this is the upper jaw. There are these additional controllers which we can use to jip the lip, like so. This is very important. This is also known as sticky lips effect. So basically what this allows us to do is move the jaw, closing the lips stuck in same position, meaning sticky lips. You can unzip and zip it as you need it, like so. We have these extra secondary controllers. These controllers are used to fine-tune the lips. The lip is very expressive. This is used for dialogues, to create the facial expression on the mouth region. We need to have these secondary controllers so that we have ultimate control over the outline of the lip. Deformation controllers can be rotated, translated as well. Now this character has a special feature of the teeth. You can see these are individual teeth that you can move in around, like so. Scale as well if needed. They will always follow with the movement of the lip, so this is very intuitive. If you don't need the teeth, you can go ahead and hide them, and this is the normal teeth of the character. Talk about the facial UI controller. So this UI is also known as the joystick based control. This is because these are just like video game arcade joystick, and you can use them to translate around. It's a very intuitive way to pose the character. You can see moving it up creates a smile, moving it down creates a frown, moving it in the translation X direction, in the positive X direction creates a wide and a narrow, and when you go to the extreme position, they will all work together like so. Okay, we have the mouth controller here, which is used for opening and closing of the mouth, at the same time syncing of the mouth as well, to create a ooh and a closed smile, like so, and they all work together. Now if I select this controller as well as the lip controller together, you can see that they work in an additive manner. They give you these wide, expressive, exaggerated shapes as well if needed. Inside of the mouth controller, there is another additional controller which is used for extreme shapes, like so. So sometimes this character does go to extreme poses, and at that time we use these shapes to create these extreme facial expression. Notice how the lower jaw follows the movement of these controllers, and you can actually select these controllers to scale it, translate, rotate in any direction as you want. And there are these tongue controllers for twisting the tongue and those kind of things. So that is the mouth and the lip controller. All of these controllers work together, the secondary, the primary, and the joystick controller as well. Now let's talk about the eye controller. These are the master eye controller. As you can see, we can select it to move the eye socket around. We can also scale it in any direction as you want, and you can also rotate it just in case. It's very straightforward. There is an eye aim controller like so, which can be used for aiming of the eye. The character has particularly big eyes. The eyes can be moved individually. You can also move them separately as well to create like a cross-eye effect. And then we have the secondary controllers to control the outline of the eyes, so you can quickly change the expression of the character just changing the outline of the eye. This is very, very intuitive, like so. So these are all secondary controllers of the eye. Once again, we have the joystick controllers as well. Now these are more like translation controller. This is the blinking of the upper eye, and this is the blinking of the lower eyelid. Now I can control the amount of blink of these controllers as well as needed. There are these master controllers which I can use to blink the entire section, the upper eye and the lower eye. Both of the eyelids will blink together to create a blink. These blinks are not linear blink. These are non-linear blinks, meaning they create a beautiful arc around the eyeball like so. And when using these blinks, you still have the ability to move this deformation control to change the outline of the eyes as needed. Now speaking of the blink, if we take a look at these blink controllers, there is something called blink level, which can be used to level the blink as needed. So if I want the lower eyelid to be blinking like so, I can do that. If I just want the upper eyelid to be blinking, I can do that as well. A very intuitive way to get the desired effect on the eyelid. So there are additional controllers for dilating the iris as well as the pupil if needed. Also, we have the ability to move the entire pupil around if needed. This is also quite useful for creating like expression, like if the character is being surprised, if it is afraid, the pupil movement and the iris movement can create the subtle effect to get better expression in the animation. Now these are the joystick controllers for the nose section and the cheek. The character doesn't have a nostril, so there is no nostril control, but basically we do have the cheek controllers, which are used for controlling the cheek. So there are two controllers, the upper cheek and the lower cheek. And I can also scale this to create the puff of the cheek. Now let's go over the brow region. So these are the main controllers of the brow on the face. So you can select them individually to create some secondary effect. You can select them, the master brow controller, to move the entire brow around. So sometimes, the brow geometry might detach from the entire geometry. If the character is startled, surprised, those kind of expression, we can do that. And they will all work together. So these are secondary controllers, in other words, tweaker controllers. The main controller is the joystick controller. So this one. So if I try to move it up, you can get expression as you need. Up, brow, brow down, and bring the brow squeeze and brow inner up. So if I move them all together, they all work in a combined way. All of these shapes are adding together, and at these extreme positions, they're adding two different individual expressions. But you can see they create a new expression based on the addition of these shapes. And on top of that, you can still go ahead and use the tweaker controls to make necessary adjustment as desired. All right. There you have it. Let me go ahead and move that mouth controller a little bit, like so. And on top of that, if I try to move this deformation controller, you can still see we can get these cartoony effects as needed. All right. So there you have it. That's a quick walkthrough of the character rig demo for this chubby little guy. And if you are interested in learning the techniques needed to rig this kind of character, be sure to check out Puppeteer Lounge rigging training workshop programs. With that being said, thank you for watching and see you in next one.